Hello everybody, welcome to the county seat. I'm your host Chadwick. Today we are at the headquarters of the Utah Association of Counties, and we're going to spend the next half hour getting to know the new head of UAC, Brandy Grace. She's been on the staff here for a while and comes out of rural Utah as an elected public official. And she's now taken the helm of the organization, and there's a whole breath of fresh air here and on the way into the legislative session. Brandy, thanks for taking the time. I know you're really, really busy.
Thank you.
So, for people who don't really know you, my first experience with you dates back about a decade, and you were the auditor in Millard County.
That's correct.
So I see you at the old State House and in the background at your office in Millard County. How did you get, what's your path?
So I first started with the county in 1993, I believe it was. I was hired as a deputy auditor in the auditor's office. There, I actually had really good opportunity. It was a part-time position, but I was hired in October, so it was a busy time in the treasurer's office as well. And the treasurer had asked if, when I wasn't busy in the auditor's office, if I could come into the treasurer's office. And then in the spring, the assessor's office pulled me in to do some work. And so very quickly it became a full-time position, and I was spending time in each of the elected offices, which I think really provided a great opportunity for me to really see all the different pieces as those elected offices really function together for the property tax system. It gave me a really good understanding of the responsibilities for each of those offices. But only a short time after that, the elected auditor asked me to serve as his chief deputy. And so I did that for a few years. And then in 2001, the elected auditor at that time left midterm, and the Republican Party approached me and asked if I'd be interested in filling the vacancy for the unexpired term.
Wow. What town did you grow up in? Millard's a big county.
A lot of landmass, not a lot of people, but I actually grew up in Scipio.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and it's fascinating that when people ask where I'm from, and I assume that no one's going to know where Scipio is, but almost everyone knows where Scipio is. Fortunately, it's right along the freeway, midpoint between Salt Lake and St. George. So usually what I hear is, oh, we stopped there for ice cream, or we stopped for cheese curd.
Yeah, cheese curds. That's a big reason, especially the jalapeno ones.
That's right.
So you have a rural connection. You can speak the language of several of the elected public offices, and then one day you were just here. And I didn't follow that transition. How did you end up at UAC?
Yeah, so after being the elected, so originally appointed to the office of auditor and then successful in several elections, I was approached and asked if I'd be interested in serving in leadership of the Utah Association of Counties. And so I did that, and in 2014 was the president. That was the same year that we had a turnover in the CEO position. And so I'd been involved in that process. And then that year as president, and then the following year as past president of the association, had really good conversations with the then CEO about different programs that I felt like UAC could host that would provide better services to our member counties, specifically in rural counties. My vision was that, for example, like HR directors, where it's a critical piece of being an employer of these employees, but a lot of the rural counties just didn't have the expertise in their communities, and elected officials were filling that responsibility as well, which isn't necessarily the best, and they're just overwhelmed. So I had this idea that the Association of Counties could provide that expertise, and then specifically rural counties or any of our member counties could access those services. That got this idea going of different services that we may be able to offer, and in 2016 was offered a position to come to work for the association and carry out this vision. So I left Scipio and moved to Draper.
Was that a big culture shock?
That was a big change. It was, yeah, for me and my family. It was something we heavily debated, but felt like it was a good move for us. Good opportunity, and so we left. No regrets, though. I mean, we love going home to Scipio, and I still have family there, but my boys have certainly enjoyed the city and they've transitioned, we've all transitioned very well, and really enjoy being in the city as well now.
So has your time up here also helped you understand some of the more urban counties? Because when the debate of you coming to the head as the CEO, when the change was made this year, the grassroots interest in having you fill that position was, one, very strong rurally, but it was also quite strong urbanly. I guess that's a word, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that came from having been an elected official. One, was important that I understood some of their issues. Certainly those along the Wasatch Front, our urban counties have unique challenges that aren't.
Of course, they say that it's the rural counties that have unique situations. So.
Yeah, they each have their own perspective. Certainly the urban counties have transportation issues. Transportation funding is important to the rural counties. In Scipio, there are no stoplights. There is no concern about time spent at a traffic stop where you're waiting to get through the light. But so the issues are very different, but I think it was important that I had been a public official, understood that process. And then also I just had really good relationships. I just genuinely love our members. I love the people who represent counties, and you're right, I'm aware that I had really good support going into the process. Many of our members reached out to me. We had really good support on both sides of it, and that was important for me. I felt like being able to build relationships with our members was key to this position.
Excellent. Well, we got a little bit of background. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to delve into some of the issues facing UAC and the counties, both urban and rural. We'll be back with the county seat in just a minute. Welcome back to the county seat. We're having a conversation today with Brandy Grace, who is the CEO of the Utah Association of Counties. And when the CEO position opened up again just earlier this year, and you were looking at coming into leadership and applying for the position, you brought a vision with you and a concept that was very well received. What were some of the elements of that?
So looking at some of the challenges that we were facing at that time with membership and some of the expectations of the membership, and then looking at where we may be able to go from that, I think was key. And yes, when I had my board interview, I was able to present to them ideas that I had for the future of the association and how we could create better value for the members. That was the word that kept coming up, is what is the value to our members? Of course, we have a really strong legislative team. We do really good advocacy work during the legislative session, but I wanted to build on that throughout the year. I wanted to be more of a way that they could look at providing resources and training throughout the year. Certainly we have a tremendous presence during the legislative session, but then there are bills that are passed that affect the way that counties operate, and I think that was an area where I felt like UAC could improve in providing training and ongoing resources to the members. So one of the things that I talked about is, as you enter the building, there's a conference room right to the side, on the left side as you enter, and there had been a conference table in there, and that conference table seated 16 people. And oftentimes we would have meetings there where the table was full and then there would be seats around the perimeter of the room. But what I told the board my vision is to get that conference table out of there and to set that room up in a classroom style where we would routinely hold trainings and invite our members to come, and they can come up with the topics as well, but we'll be holding at least one training every month talking about a lot of different things where I feel like our members would see value in that. And also it helped the members if they have an opportunity to come to our building. This is a great building.
It is.
And I wanted our members to feel like this is a place where they can come and get information that they need. And then also upgrading our communication system, because I'm also very mindful of our rural counties where it's not as convenient to come to the city as we sometimes think it is. We forget that, and I think it's important for our members who are further away to feel like they are connected here and that they have an easy way that they can phone in and participate. And so that was one of the things that I talked about, was regular training. Beyond that, looking at some of the different programs that we offer, for example, Centrally Assessed, which is an area that you and I used to visit about as I was
frequently
the auditor of Millard County, and the importance that issue is to our counties, specifically some of them who have significant value in the area of centrally assessed. And that program has kind of gone a little bit by the wayside, but I felt it important. It's important enough to some of our counties that it needs to be a regular conversation. That was another thing that I talked about. There's several other programs that I wanted to put effort and emphasis back into in order to create value for the members.
So I'd like to, you touched on something about the rural situation. Like there are unique things about urban, and the urban caucus is important, but these rural issues, particularly where you can't afford an HR director, and health departments without combining efforts becomes a problem. And while there are associations of counties that handle some of that load, it still seems like there's some opportunity to be more collaborative through UAC.
Absolutely. Another area that has been brought up has been the IT services. Again, in a lot of those counties, they either struggle with budgets that would afford that, or even professional people in their communities that may not have that level of expertise that they need. And so a collaborative approach to being able to address the needs of the counties through the association, I think, creates some efficiencies.
That, you know, that one may be kind of difficult, because if you're in a small rural county, you go, what do we need IT for? And then they say, I mean, I've got a website, or but what are the complexities of that when you're dealing with a government that people don't think about?
You're absolutely right. The government complexities with complying with Open Meetings Act and public notices and all of those pieces to it, and staying up to date with technology are a bit of a challenge. That, along with just the property tax system, budgeting, all the software demands, it's costly. And if we can create some efficiencies by taking a collaborative approach, that provides service to our communities and is even able to do it at a reduced rate from what they may be able to. Not in all cases, but we certainly want to provide the options for them, and at least look at ways that we may be able to come together and create some efficiencies for them to be compliant with the things that they're required to do so.
Excellent. Well, we're at the 1st of October. I want to take a break. When we come back, the legislature is just 3 months away, and
it is.
Most of the heavy lifting starts prior to the opening with pre-filing of bills. That's where I'd like to spend a few minutes.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll continue with the county seat. Our conversation with CEO Brandy Grace. Welcome back to the county seat. We're talking to Brandy Grace, who heads up the Utah Association of Counties. Legislature is just down the road a little bit, and
yeah, we're gearing up.
You know, people sitting at home don't really see anything until the first day of the session, but things happen. What's on the horizon? What's important to counties this year?
Yeah, so several things, and we've been working with our members to try and prioritize. There's a lot of needs of the counties, but some of them that have kind of risen to the top that are certainly very important is transportation funding. Many of our counties are struggling with the transient room tax, not the amount of tax, but just the limitations on where it can be spent. So we're looking at options to maybe allow them to use some of that funding for infrastructure needs in their communities. Wouldn't be across the board, but there's certainly some of them that are more impacted by the tourism industry than others. For example, Grand County, Washington County. So we're looking at that. Another one that has come up is emergency services in rural counties. Volunteerism is just down, and to be able to provide ambulance services in some of our smaller communities is just very difficult, where historically volunteers have staffed those ambulances, and it's becoming more and more of a problem. And certainly people travel through those communities. It's not just the locals who need those emergency services, but people traveling through those communities who have an expectation that if something were to happen, you certainly want someone to respond, but it's becoming more and more difficult to staff those ambulance services. So that's an area that we're going to be looking at, a way of maybe coming together to help support EMS services in rural communities. You know, beyond that, there's always elections and the things that come up, jail contracting, funding for for jails is certainly.
Why do you think that's such a persistent problem, Brandy? It's just like that's
never really goes away.
No, it doesn't.
It never really goes away. It's because of the funding needs. We do have a commitment this year that it'll be looked at again. The actual cost of housing inmates will be looked at and reconsidered, and so we feel that we have a good working relationship with the legislature to adequately look at what the costs are and then see how to proceed with that.
So I'd like to take just a little bit of a transition here and look at, there are people watching this at home. They're sitting, in their bathrobe. Those are interesting looking slippers you're wearing right there. And they're taking this all in and they go, okay, I get it. It's good for a commissioner. He gets to go to a lot of meetings. Maybe it helps our auditor learn a little bit more. What value is this organization to the citizens of the state?
That's a really good question. Imagine, so these issues are not unique to any one county. They're, for the most part, these issues affect many counties, if not all counties. Imagine if each county had to individually go out and try and deal with these issues on their own. There certainly is economies of scale by coming together with a collective approach and coordinating the work that we're done. There's efficiencies that is accomplished there. And beyond that, it's been fascinating to me, the conversations that I've been involved in just since becoming the CEO of the organization. Conversations with the governor's office, had a really good conversation just last week with the lieutenant governor and many of our state legislators about the importance of UAC and what it means to them. Oftentimes, as these issues come up, the question will be asked, well, where is UAC on this? And it's not specific to any one county, but where is UAC on this? And so I do think that there's tremendous respect for this association, and I don't know that we are reminded of that very often, but it's been really good for me to hear those comments over the past month or two that I've been the CEO. I think has been really helpful.
There's another element here that I keep coming back to as I've observed this for the last decade, and that is that there has to be a body of general management skill, because what you've got is turnover. You've got people running counties and organizations and departments that are elected, and they turn over. People retire, people get unpopular, they get voted out, things change, but there's still this body of knowledge that has to be there to be run. Is that a role that UAC fulfills?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you can imagine the challenges that would exist if there was just that constant turnover. You really wouldn't be making headway. And so having those that have been involved for many years, and even an organization who remembers why something may have happened 10 years ago and what the challenges were, and when you're, because you're right, it does come up over and over again. For example, we just talked about jail contracting, jail reimbursement. If that conversation were to begin at ground zero every single year, we would never get anywhere. But at least we have some historical information and knowledge that we can build on year after year.
So we're going to take one more break. When I come back, I want to kind of focus this a little bit more towards counties and what they need to be thinking about in their relationship with UAC. We'll be right back with County Seat. Welcome back to the County Seat. We're talking with Brandy Grace here at the Utah Association of Counties from their headquarters in Murray, Utah. Brandy, with this turnover that we were talking about and this body of knowledge, do you often find that you get newly elected officials who want to make their mark on a county and they go, why the heck are we spending all this money belonging to an organization, particularly if they're more populous county? They go, well, we're paying for everything and everybody else is getting all the attention. How do you overcome that?
Well, back to the conversation we were having about value and what is the value of participating in UAC. I know, having been an elected official, the value of the association certainly lies in the members and that ability to network with the members. But beyond that, the conferences, we're always very mindful of the content that we provide at our conferences. We want it to be a good environment, but a good learning environment. And we feel like being able to provide those opportunities helps them be better elected officials in their communities. Certainly being able to collaborate with others who have develop best practices, I think helps them to be better elected officials to serve the constituency that they represent. Beyond that, the programs that we offer where we can look at cost savings for different programs. For example, one of them is the employee benefits program that where we help develop health insurance packages for county employees. We've been able to provide significant cost savings to the counties, which essentially is taxpayer dollars. It's savings to the taxpayers. And so, yeah, there's a price tag that goes with that, but we certainly feel that the value that they get out of it is tremendous. Certainly, the counties historically have felt like there is value and have continued participation. But going forward, I felt like this was a really good opportunity for us to reevaluate what we are offering. And coming in as the new CEO, I'm very excited. I feel like it's very worthwhile to participate and even have committed to do more so to create greater value. We've kept our dues low by looking at these other programs that potentially can generate some revenue because we're mindful of where the revenue comes from. We certainly want to keep the costs low and create good value and a good experience for all elected officials of the counties.
Excellent. Any final thought of one last nugget of something you just want to let people know?
Absolutely. I'd love to give a shout out to our staff. We have great staff here that are as excited about county government and what we can do for them, and just really enjoy the networking and the opportunity to engage with county elected officials. They're really good people in the state of Utah who represent the citizens, and we enjoy working with them. We enjoy the opportunity to serve them and to serve the citizens of the state of Utah.
Ditto that. I couldn't agree with you more. You know, local government really has such a big impact, and as we are starting to see with the national government not being able to get anything done, with all of this partisanship, it is a unique and humbling experience to see how well Utah's counties get together, roll up their sleeves, and fix problems. And that's a place we can rely on when other governments get too embroiled in politics. So be involved, be part of the solution. Counties is where your life happens, so be part of it, and we'll see you next week on The County Seat.